This is the State of the Town meeting, believe it or not. And first to address us on the State of the Town is First Selectman Monica McNally.
Good evening, Mr. Moderator, RTM members, my fellow board members, town officials, Darien citizens. I thank you all for joining us tonight, and for those tuning into 79, thank you for that. Chairman Dineen, Chairman Palen, Vice Chairman Reilly, and myself are very honored to provide you with our perspective on the state of the town. Let's turn this thing a little bit. Okay. This evening, I would like to speak with you about a couple of initiatives I believe are important to Darien. I would also like to speak with you about new developments that are underway. And these developments will improve Darien in many ways, and the town will do its part to ensure their success. The first initiative I'll cover is flooding. Our efforts to address flooding began last year. Before I took office a year ago, there were two flooding events that severely impacted town residents and businesses. Storm Elsa in July of 21 and Storm Ida just a month later together dropped 24% of our average annual rainfall in less than 24 hours. Homes and businesses, some that had never experienced flooding before, were affected significantly. Our first response was assistance. We rescued people, cleaned up debris, helped victims apply for financial aid. Once the emergency had passed, we launched a series of efforts to understand why this flooding was so severe and what we could do about it. As an example, we initiated or updated extensive studies in areas particularly hard hit, including Bailey Avenue and Saltbox Lane. The studies were completed this month, and the findings are currently under review. A study of Grove Street, Tilly Pond area is also in progress. And once these studies are completed, we will post them to the website and schedule public hearings to provide an overview. In addition to these studies, we have also made substantial physical improvements. Over the last 6 months, we have upgraded drainage on Lee Warden Road and Brookside Road, as well as Laurel Lane. We have also upgraded catch basins on West Avenue and Fairfield Avenue, enhanced sidewalks, curbing, and drainage on Nearwater Lane, and repaired pipes on West Avenue. For the upcoming fiscal year, we will be seeking funding for drainage improvements on Long Neck Point Road, Hanson Road, and West Avenue. Other examples of flooding infrastructure work include the Gorms Pond Dam, which was damaged during last year's Hurricane Ida and required an immediate temporary repair. The design for the permanent repair is currently underway, and it's about 1/3 complete. We are now pursuing regulatory permits for this project and hope to secure FEMA construction funds to cover the estimated costs, which range from $1.5 to $2.5 million. In addition, the town hired a consultant in 2021 to inspect damage to the Rings End Bridge Road and the Old Kings Highway South Bridge after Hurricane Ida, and to provide recommendations and cost estimates to restore bridge ratings to an acceptable level. The design specs for improvements are nearly ready, and we will fund the repairs from ARPA grants the town received. The Hanson Road Bridge also suffered storm damage with some settlement of the West Bridge abutment. The Department of Public Works put a temporary fix in place, and a design effort to replace the bridge is about 25% complete, with a cost estimate of approximately $1.3 million. In summary, flood prevention and mitigation is a complex and costly problem. For more perspectives, I would encourage viewing the October 3rd Board of Selectmen meeting. The flooding presentation that was given by town officials and professionals was very well done. You can find this on TV 79. The second initiative to discuss with you tonight is the acquisition of Great Island, an opportunity that presented itself when the island's owners, the Steinkraus family, decided to sell. This property, viewed by town leaders as a potential resource for residents, is an important 61-acre parcel for all of Darien and all of Long Island Sound. If we can, we should save it from substantial development and hold the land forever under town ownership. Should we complete this transaction, I look forward to inviting all of you to an open house tour. But this transaction is far from complete, as our buyer due diligence effort has uncovered items that are holding up progress. We are hard at work trying to address them with the sellers and the contiguous landowners and neighbors. We hope to have an update for you in the next 100 days. Now I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about the many ways in which Darien is evolving and growing. Our town has a lot of energy right now. It really does. I'm sure you've noticed the construction nearing completion over at Federal Realty in Norotan Heights and the construction that began this last summer as part of the Corbin redevelopment. Planning continues for the Palmer property adjacent to Federal, and we expect a positive update on it in the near future. These multifamily developments will add over 300 new residents and families to our town. Many restaurants and small businesses will accompany these projects, bringing numerous local jobs and an expanded tax base. One impact of the new developments is the need for additional resources to address the increase in state-mandated inspections of restaurants, retail, office, and apartment spaces. This year's budget included funds for adding a full-time deputy fire marshal, and we anticipate requests for additional staffing as more units come online over the next few years. The town continuously monitors community needs and modifies manpower and work schedules as appropriate. Sometimes changes to work schedules are influenced by costs, as was the case last summer with our summer paving project. By postponing the August 22 paving until the spring of 2023, the town expects to see a cost savings of approximately 20%. The 2023 paving will take place as scheduled in August. The police department continues to respond to a growing number of calls and requests for assistance and anticipates this volume will remain elevated as additional housing and commercial developments come online. Calls for mental health assistance continue to grow. State-mandated training continues to expand, and the required police accreditation to meet the Police Officers Standing and Training Council Tier 3 level by January of 2026 will be a multi-year effort requiring staff oversight at every level. Post 53 has had a significant growth in call volume in 2022, with 200 more responses this year at this time than at the same point in 2021. In addition, Post 53 continues to innovate services and has recently made Darien the third community in the state to participate in the Leave Behind Narcan program, which offers a life-saving antidote in cases of overdose. Earlier this year, we chartered a committee to identify opportunities in information technology. This committee is focusing on cost efficiencies, better purchasing coordination, and improvements to the interface between our citizens and town government. The Board of Selectmen has already voted to implement the committee's IT policy updates, and we expect more recommendations from them soon. I'd like to thank Tom Bell for serving almost 12 years as our harbor master. John Kena was appointed to the post by the governor in April, and since then he has been reviewing relevant town ordinances. He plans to recommend updates that will assure compliance and fair usage of mooring permits and assignments. Next year, an online mooring system will require users to provide a copy of their vessel registration, including those that are on the wait list with a boat. All waitlist users will be contacted to ensure that their applications are up to date. Although the COVID crisis has diminished, we continue to strive to limit infections in town. Over the last 2 years, we distributed masks and over 4,700 test kits during drive-through programs at the high school. Thank you, high school. We set up testing sites and we protected employees and visitors to our building. The health department held 10 clinics and distributed hundreds of booster shots for both children and adults. We also studied our response to the pandemic, which resulted, for example, in more ways to transact business with the town online. We are continuing to look at the lessons learned from COVID to help us be even more prepared for such emergencies in the future. Darien had a 61% voter turnout rate for November's midterm elections. 7 new members were elected to the RTM in November. And to those of you that are here for your first State of the Town, I want to say sincerely, thank you for stepping forward and offering your time and your expertise to our town. I'd also like to take this opportunity to express, on behalf of the town, my gratitude for Terry Wood's 14 years of service as our state representative, and to welcome Tracy Mara, our new state representative. We've welcomed 224 babies so far this year, an 11% increase over our 5-year average, which I'm sure, all of whom I'm sure, will add to the participation in our town's parks and recreation activities, which have exploded over the last couple of years. While we look forward to having our newest residents join our community's activities in the future, right now our seniors they're participating in an ever-growing number of programs at the Mather Center that support, engage, and teach new skills to our wiser and more experienced residents. As always, town departments pivot to meet the needs of our community as circumstances require. This year, the Human Services Department took a leadership role on the newly created Mental Health Task Force. With close to 50 members, including mental health experts and key community leaders, this group works to research needs, advocate for ways to address those needs, and to educate. A list of mental health providers accepting new clients is on the town website. In addition, Director Allie Ramstack and public health nurse Paula Sutliff have completed training to become certified mental health first aid trainers, and they will begin to offer that training in 2023 to our community. The Parks and Recreation Committee spearheaded 4 new working groups: Weed Beach, Invasives, Pear Tree Beach, and Playgrounds, to conduct in-depth reviews and make recommendations to the full commission. The Playground group will oversee the replacement of 3 playgrounds, while the Weed Beach group is focused on the creation of the Weed Beach Meadow and Trail project. This year, the Board of Selectmen adopted a community values statement, which reflects Darien's commitment to respect and inclusion for all. My fellow selectmen and I attend a multitude of annual events, supporting a variety of causes, and this year we were pleased to participate in new events, including a rally for Ukraine, unveiling ceremonies for Darien's new Heritage Trail, and the first Darien Pride event. Just recently, through the work done by the Advisory Commission on Sustainability, the town received recognition for its efforts in sustainability, achieving silver level certification. The Eversource tree cutting case along Little Brook Road was settled after a long mediation process. These are only some of the many things our town employees and volunteers from our various boards and commissions have been working on behind the scenes to improve the quality of life that we all enjoy here in Darien. So growth and change are inevitable. We must welcome growth for the benefit of our town, and we must plan for the changes driven by growth. As changes require additional police, fire personnel, or teachers, we will address those requests as they come to the forefront. The need for more open space is ever present and will only increase, which is another reason acquiring Great Island for the town has been a priority of mine. We have a truly unique and wonderful town whose selfless residents volunteer their time to so many causes. These are some of the things that I hope will never change, and why I continue to be so proud to represent our town. So I thank you for your unwavering support of Darien, and I wish a happy holiday to all of you and your loved ones. Thank you.
So, speaking on behalf of the Planning and Zoning Commission, George? There you are. See, you're hidden behind the... George Reilly.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, and good evening, one and all. I am George Reilly, Vice Chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Stephen Mulvaney, Chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission, became unable to be here tonight at the last minute and asked me to deliver his remarks. Steve was recently re-elected for the 4th year as chair of the commission, and I know he misses being here tonight to deliver this report himself. Steve and the staff of P&Z have prepared this summary of highlights of what the town and commission have recently achieved and what we see going forward. As always, Steve starts with a sincere thank you to the volunteers who serve on our local land use boards, the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Environmental Protection Commission, the Architectural Review Board, and Blight Review Board. We appreciate your hard work. This year, Steve wants specifically to call out longtime Architectural Review Board member Marian Castell, who has recently retired from the ARB after many, many years of service. Marianne is also, of course, known for her longtime role as town historian and her other years of public service dating back more than 40 years. Her dedication to the town of Darien has gone above and beyond. We cannot thank her enough. As reported over the past few years, change is on the horizon and looming larger now. We can all now see firsthand the changes in Norotan Heights and in downtown that Steve has been referencing in his remarks in past years. First is the redevelopment of Norotan Heights by Federal Realty. The project is called Darien Commons. This started in 2021 with the construction of the new Walgreens to replace the old one, as well as the removal of the longtime Stop and Shop building. As you all must have seen by now, multiple mixed-use 3-story buildings are nearing completion. There is also a brand new sidewalk and facade facing West Avenue, which changes the look and feel of the street. The new buildings will include 15 to 20 first-floor commercial tenants, including a mix of restaurants, personal service uses, an ice cream shop, and a coffee shop, along with upper-floor residential rental units. Steve has been in touch with the town tax assessor, Anthony Homecki, whose early estimate is an increase in value of over $100 million to the grand list, which does not include personal property and vehicles. An increase in the grand list in that amount occurs very rarely in a town our size, so it is important to note. Since no commercial tenants have moved in, no final specific numbers have yet been generated by the assessor. Needless to say, this new development is reinvigorating Norotan Heights. There will be more pedestrian and shopper activity on site in the near future. Next is the Corbin District project in downtown. Baywater Properties is in the process of constructing 3 mixed-use replacement buildings on the east side of Corbin Drive, Expected completion of these 3 buildings is over the next 3 months. These buildings are fully leased on the commercial side, and I understand tenants have begun moving into 35 Corbin Drive at the corner of Old King South and Corbin. Following approval of some modest changes to the plans earlier this year by P&Z, Phase 2 will start soon, which is on the west side of Corbin Drive. That portion of the project will take over a year to complete. Apparently, the commercial spaces are all spoken for. The Planning and Zoning Commission has long made improving downtown a priority, and this new mixed-use project will help bring more activity downtown. Steve would emphasize confidence that these changes will only benefit existing businesses in downtown, with one possible drawback, which is the relocation of the downtown Darien post office. While it has temporarily moved to Norotan Heights under Palmer's Market, the eventual location for the downtown post office will be Goodwives Shopping Center. While the role that the post office plays has changed in communities like ours in recent years, Steve is of the strong belief that its new location in Goodwives will be a help to the shopping center. Speaking of shopping centers, with the redevelopment of the Norotan Heights Shopping Center having received revised local approvals, it is hoped that this project will get underway in 2023. Once it does get underway, it will take at least a year to construct, and it should be, as Steve says, a nice bookend to the Federal Realty project. The new Oxford Elementary School is coming along with scheduled completion later this year. The Planning and Zoning Commission and Architectural Review Board are in the process of reviewing the additions and alterations proposed for Hindley Homes and Royal Schools. If all goes well, construction can start in June or July 2023. If I may go off script for myself, I would like to highlight that with the Parklands appeal resolved, that conversion to residential units authorized by a recent amendment to the zoning regulations may commence soon. I am aware of other commercial properties on the market that may also result in such conversions, and there is potential for a significant change in the commercial profile of the town in coming years. I suggest the Board of Education and police departments will want to keep an eye on such developments. Steve is a real estate guy and has been in the commercial real estate valuation and analysis business for a long time. He is familiar with development and redevelopment in Fairfield County. He notes that demand for Darien is still very strong, both on the residential side and the commercial side. While this is in the domain of the Board of Finance and others, Steve believes that long-term private redevelopment projects will have a significant positive impact by increasing the overall grand list of Darien, which has the ability to keep the mill rate the same or even lower it. And as you all know, most communities do not get the opportunity that we now have in terms of growing the grand list. Steve is sure that in a few years, when we all see the final products, it all will be worth it. But we just have to put up with some construction inconveniences in the meantime to reap those rewards. Steve continues with some other matters that were acted upon during 2022 by the Planning and Zoning Commission. You may recall that we came before the RTM with a recommendation to opt out of the state requirement to allow accessory dwelling units, such as in-law apartments. Thank you for enacting the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Selectmen. Our commission will be looking at the issue in 2023 and deciding whether to allow such accessory apartments, and if so, where and on what terms. It is an important decision, and we will be taking a close look at it. Also in 2022, the Planning and Zoning Commission prepared a state-required affordable housing plan. We completed the draft plan, held a public hearing, and adopted the final plan a few months ago. We know that it will be a valuable tool for our local boards and commissions. It can be found on the town website. One other item we hope to tackle in 2023, consistent with concerns about flooding, is our stormwater management regulations. It has been a few years since our stormwater management regulations have been in place. and we're hoping to work with an outside engineering firm to review them and make sure that what we have in place is appropriate and where we can make them better to address stormwater management going forward. As properties in Darien are redeveloped, drainage will continue to be a prime focus of the Commission on many applications. So as you can see, this has been a year of lots of construction activity, and the Planning and Zoning Commission has had a very active 2022 with much work on our plate already for 2023. Over the next year, the town will start to see many highly visible construction projects start to take shape, and more are on the horizon. Overall, to summarize these remarks, Steve says that the state of the town, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the Darien real estate market are all doing great. So in conclusion, Steve, and if I may add myself, we wish you all the best in 2023, and he looks forward to updating you all again a year from now. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Nice fill-in. Very good.
Thank you, sir.
Now, speaking for the Board of Education, Duke Dineen.
Good evening, everyone. I am Duke Dineen. Good evening, Mr. Moderator, members of the RTM, fellow elected officials, and members of the community, and those of you watching on Channel 79. On behalf of my colleagues from the Board of Education, it is my pleasure to update you on the work we're doing for the students, families, and taxpayers of Darien. I'd also like to extend a thank you to the administration and the board for all the hard work and the commitment that's done on behalf of our students. It's a privilege to stand before you this evening as chair of the Board of Education. I would like to publicly take this opportunity to recognize the 6 years of service of Tara Achman as chair and member of the Board of Education, and simultaneously we extend a warm welcome to our one new member, Katie Lublin. After almost 9 years on this board, I find myself more and more coming back to one important point that I believe will continue to keep us focused and on point, and that is schools exist for children. We must, in everything we do, stay focused on our students, and from that starting point, we will have the right conversations and make the right decisions for our student and district. Our focus has to be on the whole student, the physical and mental health of each student in a safe and secure learning environment. Our parents and our community have never been more involved in our district, and we have more participation than ever at our board meetings. We welcome the feedback and the involvement. Staying informed is key. With our new communications committee hard at work, we look forward to continuing to work with our parents and community on keeping everyone informed, continuing to listen, respond, and ensure parents feel the transparency around the hard work our professionals are doing for our students. Working together is key. With over 4,600 students, we have 9,200 parents and guardians, on top of a population of people that do not have kids in our school district. With that comes many ideas, thoughts, and values. We have left, we have right, we have center, and everything in between, all with a voice around our children's education. We will continue to listen, learn, and work with our highly educated and experienced professional staff to stay focused on our students. COVID-19 update. We learned a lot through COVID. We accomplished a lot, more than most districts. But we must continue to learn, listen, and stay focused on our students' needs and make sure we hear about the needs coming out of COVID. It's been exciting to transition back to pre-COVID learning conditions for the start of the 2022-2023 school year. And I will tell you that the energy at Convocation was incredible, and you could feel the energy from the entire staff in the DHS auditorium. Navigating the pandemic over the past few years has been a collaborative effort with students, staff, parents, and medical professionals in town government agencies. We thank the entire school community for their support throughout this unprecedented period in our children's education. Mental health and school security. The school community in town experienced unimaginable sorrow and lost this year by the death of 3 students, 2 by suicide, in the space of 2 months and at the end of a school year. We continue to uplift the families in our thoughts and prayers. The pain of losing these beautiful young lives was devastating and frightening for our families, school community, and town. The resilience and compassion displayed by our young people during this time of unimaginable loss has been remarkable. Meeting the needs of our students and staff continues to be a priority. Through the establishment of a town-wide mental health task force, we are collaborating as a community to address the mental health needs of our students and train our staff as we move from a period of postvention to prevention and awareness. In the near future, we will welcome a new director of mental health who will guide our efforts to ensure mental health and wellness of our school community, working hand in hand with our town. In addition to mental health and wellness, we continue to improve our practice with the physical safety of our schools. Following robust discussions at Board of Ed meetings and regular reviews of our school security practices, we are in the final stages of hiring a director of school security and school security officers for each of the elementary schools. This process has been a collaboration and partnership with our police chief and department. To be clear, nothing has been circumvented in the process. I repeat, nothing has been circumvented in the process. To say otherwise is a falsehood. We worked hard with the Board of Finance, we worked hard with the police chief to come to the conclusion that this is the best next step for the security of our schools. Thank you to the members of the entire Darien community for your outreach, your comments, and your feedback around the security protocols. We are a leading district in implementing these security protocols for our schools. I hear this from many other districts that are starting to follow us. There are 7 in process. While you can debate security and protocols endlessly, the board is charged with the safety and security of our most precious asset, our children, along with our staff. The world has changed, and waiting, following, or continue to debate and play politics around process is not leadership. When it comes to security, we act on the behalf of our students. The district is in year 2 of implementing our strategic plan. The plan was developed under the guidance of the superintendent of schools and a committee of 27 members representing students, staff, parents, community members, and members of the Board of Education. This strategic plan continues to serve as a blueprint to guide the board and the district's work. The strategic plan also includes a development and recent approval of the vision of the graduate at the high school, which serves as a foundation for the current NEASC decennial accreditation that is in process right now and will be completed in 2024. The strategic plan also highlights the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and at the heart of this is our initiative of a shared desire to ensure welcoming schools for all students so they are safe, able to learn, and are prepared for a rapidly changing world. Currently, our enrollment stands at 4,586 children in K through 12, with another 95 children in our ELP program. Our most recent enrollment study by SLAM, projected out to 2032-33, shows a steady increase of approximately 100 students in the next 5 years, then growing roughly by 300 students over the next 10 years. To Monica's point, a lot of baby births over the last couple of years. The district remains a highly desirable school system known for its academic excellence. Our current average cost per pupil for fiscal '23 is $23,180, which is still in the median range in our comparable district reference group. When we last met, the RTM approved the 2022-2023 budget. Some of the work directly supported by your votes and ongoing support included but not limited to maintaining reasonable class sizes, recovery services for special ed and support services, supporting one-to-one access to technology, the continued focus on mental health and social-emotional learning, and the implementation of the Ruler program from the Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence. Network and technology support and wireless infrastructure for student learning, facility improvements, continued participation in the Minority Teacher in Residence program, Mandarin Chinese at the middle school and high school, and with the assistance of our PTOs, who are an incredible group of volunteers, we were able to celebrate the end of 5th and 8th grade moving up ceremonies and an incredible high school prom and graduation this past year. Student recognition and return on investment. The taxpayers in Darien receive a tremendous return on investment when comparing student academic achievement and per pupil expenditures as compared to other districts. Students' performance across standardized testing continues to be exceptional. 473 students took 1,053 AP tests, with 91% of the tests receiving a score of 3 or higher. The class of 2022 had 7 National Merit Scholar finalists, 25 commended scholars, and 7 presidential scholars. The 2022 U.S. News and World Report ranked Darien High School the #1 high school in Connecticut. The high school also gained national recognition as one of the 2022 best communities for music education by the NAM Foundation. The production of musicals and arts performances, chorus, band, orchestra, and theater are second to none and just continue to be extraordinary. There is a concert this week. I would highly recommend it. The Middlesex Quiz Bowl team continues to experience accolades and championships. And last but not least, the continued success of our athletics and sports teams, FCAC and SEAC, with 10 divisional championships, 5 FCAC championships, and 5 state championships. Elementary school projects. We're excited this year to open the academic wing of Oxbridge Elementary School. This exciting project was planned and expertly managed by a dedicated building committee overseen by Kip Coons. This $63 million project is scheduled to fully open in the fall of 2023 and will provide generations of Darien children with a state-of-the-art educational environment, all done under budget. Simultaneously, the Royal Hindley and Holmes Building Committee was formed and has been conducting its work for the renovations of the Royal Holmes and Hindley Elementary Schools. Thanks to the hard work and dedicated leadership of the building committee co-chairs, Chris Price and Jill McCammon, the project is in its final stages of submission to the Office of the School of Construction Grants and Reviews. Say that 6 times. The projects are scheduled for completion by the fall of 2025. After the new year, we look forward to meeting with the Board of Finance, RTM Education, and RTM Finance and Budget Committee, and the full RTM to review the new teacher's contract that respects the hard and talented work of our teachers, particularly over the last COVID years, while also recognizing the current economic climate. Excuse me. Teachers matter, and the skills and dedication of our talented teachers have been particularly necessary, noticeable, and impressive during the pandemic. The value of our human capital cannot be underestimated, particularly during these difficult times of teacher shortages, and it is increasingly more difficult to attract staff. It is critical we continue to attract and retain talented teachers. Students are always our top priority, and we make decisions in the best interest of all children and their educational needs. At the December 2nd remote legislative breakfast, Darien, along with many Fairfield County districts, implored our state representatives to advocate for appropriate funding for education and removing the cap on excess cost grant for special education services. Additional topics included the new K-3 reading program, assistance for teacher shortage, relief from state mandates, and support for the mental health and social emotional needs of our students. Excuse me. Budget season is upon us, and the board looks forward to collaborating with all town officials and bodies in bringing forward a financially responsive budget that meets the needs of the district. As I have said at previous Board of Ed meetings, we have invested in education over the last few years, and we will continue to invest in our students' education. Excuse me. But we also need to make sure all of our investment is working 100% of the time in helping our students and staff each day. Prioritization is a key and will drive this budget season and discussion. We have to be able to implement and execute 150% on our priorities, or we have failed our students. We have to understand our capacity and our resources to deliver each day for our students. Our priorities, as I have mentioned at recent board meetings, will keep us focused on the student, the mental and physical well-being of our students and staff, the safety and security of our students and staff, our commitment to our facilities and infrastructure, supporting teachers and recruiting new teachers through our new contract, our commitment to our communications committee in delivering on a comprehensive communication plan, and continued work and transparency through our curriculum committee. There are many details and a lot of hard work is behind this, but you can see our plate is full and we must execute on all these initiatives to the benefit of our students. Education is in constant motion, but we need to make sure we are focused on the basics of each day. We have to make sure we understand our academic goals for our students and base them on reducing stress and anxiety while providing a safe learning environment. In conclusion, let's stay focused on the student. Let's support our incredible teachers and staff. Let's execute on all we have invested in. Let's keep our priorities. Let's continue to listen to students, parents, teachers, and the community. Together, we are the best district in the state and one of the best in the country. On behalf of the entire Board of Education and Administration, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to address the town. I wish you a healthy, safe, and happy holiday season and look forward to further discussions in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Duke. Great. Next, speaking on behalf of the Board of Finance, Jim Palen, Chair.
Thanks, sir. Good evening, everyone. RTM members, elected officials, and the public, as well as those watching on Channel 79. It's 10:20, so I'll try to get through these 45 slides as fast as possible, okay? A little bit of a mix-up, so we don't have a presentation behind me, but Jim Cameron and the team at Channel 79 will be broadcasting the dozen slides that I have, so you all, when you get back home tonight, can review the presentation again, okay? In all seriousness, I will say, as I report on the financial state of the town here, it's we're in great shape. One of the reasons we're in great shape, as you heard Monica talk to earlier, a lot of our service programs here in town are delivering sort of all-time high in terms of revenues. And you look at sort of what that does to the budgets. We heard George Reilly speak earlier about the healthy real estate market that we're facing and the growing grand list, the additions to the grand list as a result of a number of these large developments we see at Corbin Drive and Norotan Heights, and even some of the other ones that are being considered. And we've even heard Duke Dineen, Chair of the Board of Education, talk about how their board continues to look at return on investment in their budgets. And they constantly, while they look at new programs, I think just at his last meeting, he mentioned they're constantly reevaluating programs that they have currently based in the budget. To the finance guy, to the team, the Board of Finance, it's constantly looking at our overall expenditures, if you will, the governor of expenditures in town here. Those are sort of music to our ears. So what I'm going to do is run through a handful of pages here. We'll talk about the overall state of Darayen's fiscal health, and really hitting on the high level here, and I'll try to keep it short. In summary, Darien is in a great financial condition. We offer significant value to our residents, and we continue to invest. First off, our AAA rating. Darien's rated AAA from Moody's, which is the highest possible rating we could obtain. That rating, Moody's has indicated a few months ago, will be maintained even following the $60 million investment in Oxbridge, the close to $80 million of bonding that we will undertake for the HHR improvements to our 3 elementary schools, and the $103 million of bonding that has been approved for the purchase of Great Island. That will make us and allow us to continue to have ample access to the capital markets, to deal with constant reinvestment in our emergency apparatus, as we talked about tonight. You all approved approximately $2 billion for a new fire truck. We have investments that we need to make to repair the bridge on Hanson Road, the Rings End Bridge, and other investments that constantly pop up. So we're in very good shape to access the cheapest funding available. We currently, the audit is not complete yet, but we expect that our fiscal year 2022 year-end fund balance will be $27.5 million. That's up approximately $1 million from the year before. Okay, and it's approximately $8.4 million above the Board of Finance's stated minimum threshold, which is approximately 12% of our budgeted revenues and expenses. We have ample debt capacity. We ended this fiscal year on June 30th with about $84.6 million worth of debt. The last time we had $84.6 million of debt was 10 years ago. Debt has been falling since then and has only recently begun to rise as a result of some of the school projects, namely Oxbridge, and other smaller bonding projects that we have. If we talk about Great Island and the HHR buildings as well as some others, it's the expectation that our debt would rise to around $210 to $230 million over the next few years. And that compares with an all-time high of $100 million about 15 years ago. But again, in talking with the rating agencies, we're in great shape. They may expect us to maintain a AAA rating and be able to bond any known and unknown costs that may come up. And even after this incremental bonding, we'll be well below our statutory debt limits that we have set from the state. Our mill rate. Darien has a mill rate of about 17.23%. Mills, I should say, per thousand of assessed real estate value. That's one of the lowest in the entire state of Connecticut. And it's driven in part by the fact that we're good stewards of our two operating budgets at the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed level, but also because we have a very strong and growing grant list. Our grant list has grown outside of the mega projects that you may see in Corbin and in Norotan Heights. We've generally grown at around 75 to 100 basis points per year. If you look inside the large projects that are underway, we expect that those will add 100 to 150 million per year over the next 3 years to our grant list, which will help to offset some of the increase in expenditures which we'll be seeing as a result of some of the short-term inflation and contracts that have been agreed to. Lastly, the demand for real estate, as George Reilly mentioned earlier. Darien continues to be a location that families flock to move, to get a great education, to enjoy great town services, to play pickleball, and other great sports assets that we've invested in. Okay, so in closing here, Darien has survived the economic volatility of the pandemic, and we remain in great shape going into 2023, or fiscal 2024. The next page. Overall, this page shows what our overall level of spending has been for the past 10 years. Last year, we closed out with $152 million of operating expenditures. And our budgeted 2023 expenditures were 159. So going up from 152.7 to 159. That includes the increase in operating and capital expenditures. Now, as we talked about a little bit tonight, the Board of Ed, as a result primarily of slightly lower student population than they expected, was running approximately a $900,000 surplus, some of which they've used for some of their new initiatives. The Board of Selectmen side is also running a little bit of a surplus and so forth. So like last year, we expect that we'll finish out this year below budget. When you look at the breakdown of our expenditures, over the past 5 years, the Board of Ed budget's grown from $93 million to $106 million. Again, we're talking about as of fiscal 2022. That's a 2.7% 5-year compounded annual growth rate. On the town side, it's grown from $29 million to just under $36 million. That's a 4.3% 5-year compounded annual growth rate. And when you look at the breakout between Board of Ed spending and town side spending, it's approximately 75% on education and 25% on town services. And that varies slightly, but it's been relatively consistent over the last 10 years. Board of Ed, being 75% of our operating expenses, we track enrollment and we track expenditures per student. Okay, enrollment peaked in 2015 at just under 4,900. It fell to a low of 4,600 in 2021. We saw it jump back up for the first time in 2022, and this year, while they projected a largely flat student population, we've actually seen it come down a little bit. Okay, but we track it closely, and I think that's one of the reasons that we see a surplus on the Board of Ed side. When you look at expenditures per student, they've continued to rise, and in 2023, based on our calculations, we see around $23,500 per student based on the budget. When we look at total indebtedness, I spoke to a little bit at the beginning of my presentation. We ended 2022 with $84.6 million, and we expect with the HHR improvements and purchase of Great Island and others that debt balance will exceed $200 million. When we look at debt service, our debt service has come up slightly this year from last year, just based on how we amortize our debt, and is at around $10.5 million per year, and that's on a $150 million budget. So it's around 6.5% to 7% of our overall budget. When we look at the unassigned fund balance, okay, and this has been a topic we've discussed a lot, F&B has discussed a lot, but this is our rainy day fund. This is what we use when COVID hit and the Board of Ed and the town and others needed expenditures here. We ended last year with $27.5 million of fund balance, up about $1.5 million from the year before. That's 8.5 above what our projected minimum is. The Board of Finance likes to maintain a minimum of 12%. Is our policy. We target around 15%, but right now we're higher than that. One of the things that's driven the continued growth in the unassigned fund balance is some of our surpluses. The Board of Finance has used generally fund balance to pay for capital projects that we don't bond, okay? But we will never use our fund balance to pay for operating expenses. What's happened over the past few years, and we see this year as a result of a slightly declining student population. We saw last year as a result of significant federal grants and state grants that we got in connection with the pandemic and so forth, is we've had surpluses within our operating budgets. So what has happened is those surpluses that get deposited back into the general fund have been greater than the actual cash-funded capital projects that we've been funding out of the general fund. So one of the things that we'll be looking at this year is how are we budgeting? We want to make sure that we're budgeting as accurately as possible. We want to make sure that both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education are funding all of their expected needs, but we want to make sure that there's not surpluses or reserves inside of these budgets, because the one reserve that the town holds as our general fund, and that's what we should be using to fund overruns in either one of our budgets. We should be budgeting as close to the expected as possible, and I think both boards do a good job, and we do see surpluses. Last year is largely driven by out of our police budget, because we were 3 to 4 officers down, and this year a lot of it's being driven by the fact that our student population is down a little bit, but we should try to budget as accurately as possible, because that will prevent the surpluses that replenish the general fund from being greater than the capital that we spend out of it. If you look at 2022 at a glance, on the revenue side, property taxes came in about $700,000, or 0.5% higher than we expected. A lot of that was driven by some of our conservative assumptions around the collection rate. Part of it was driven by a higher than expected collection of past due taxes. And others were driven by changes in building permits that added to the grand list. When we look at other revenues, largely town clerk revenues as a result of property sales and building permits, we're about $1.9 million higher than what we budgeted. State grants, we were generally in line with what we expected. In our contribution from fund balance, we had assumed we were going to include $3.2 million from fund balance, but because of the surpluses that we got back, we actually didn't include any, so it's a $3.2 million savings, or reduction, I should say, in revenues. On the expenditure side, the town had a $1.2 million surplus, again, largely driven by the police budget of close to $450,000 to $500,000. The Board of Ed has returned a surplus to the town of approximately $700,000, which was about 70 basis points of their overall budget. And debt service and capital came in as expected. Guidance. So in the past, I and my predecessor have talked about budgeting guidance. So we break down the budget growth into two different areas. Core growth, which is delivering the same thing next year as what we did this year. And then we look at new growth, the addition of new programs and so forth. And while this year, the long-term guidance that I'm providing is similar to what it was last year, is 2.5% growth for existing core programs. Short term, we think given recent contracts that were negotiated and some of the inflationary pressures we see both on the operating side and the capital side, we think short-term budget guidance should be in a 2.5% to 3% increase. When you look at new growth, and I mentioned this last year and I'll reiterate it again, we should be considering new programs that our residents demand and that we need to maintain successful schools, but we also need to be reconsidering other programs that we're delivering. And whether this is on the Board of Ed side, adding a new language and removing another language, or adding a new program and removing the bring your own device, and whether on the town side there's also new programs that we look at expanding versus reallocating or shrinking programs that are not in demand. We need to constantly re-evaluate and look at the return on investment that we're getting out of all of our dollars, not just new dollars. So overall, as I think about overall budget growth in terms of core budget plus growth, we think long-term that should be around 3%. And while in short term, given some of the inflationary pressures and so forth, it should be in the 3 to 3.5% range. Grand list growth, which I'm expecting to be 100 to 150 million in each of the next few years, will offset some of these short-term inflationary pressures that we're receiving. But long-term, we need to return to what we think are manageable budget increases around 2.5% to 3%. In closing, I'll give you a few thoughts, okay? New initiatives I've talked about, we need to constantly reevaluate everything we're doing to see if we can do it better and see if it's truly being demanded by our students, our staff, and our residents. When we think about continuing to make investments in the town, right? We're very near completion on a $60 million elementary school up at, to replace the old Oxridge. That's coming in below budget. I did not hear of any value engineering in that project, and we're going to end up with a very attractive asset that will serve this town, its residents, and its students for a long time. We have $140 million of new investment, as I mentioned, between the HHR building programs around $80 million and the $60 that we just spent on Oxridge. And lastly, the Great Island acquisition, of which you all approved $103 million worth of bonding. That's a lot of bonding in addition to our normal capital investments we need to make. We need to think very carefully about incremental new projects. The guidance that I mentioned before, guidance is guidance, and it's designed by the Board of Finance to help keep this town fiscally healthy. That means we want to deliver all the services that we demand, and we want to keep a low mill rate. That helps continue to drive people to Darien, that helps support the lower taxes, support strong real estate values here. And again, budgeting. Budgeting should target what we actually expect we will spend. We should not be including reserves or excesses or contingencies in our operating budgets. We have a $27 million reserve fund that we can tap at any time. If any board should have a shortfall on their budget, they can always come to the Board of Finance and then to the RTM to access this. And it can be done within, depending on the amount, within a week or a month's notice, okay? I think one of the reasons we've been very successful and continue to be financially healthy is that I think the Board of Finance has a very strong relationship in collaboration with both of our operating boards, with the Board of Ed and with the Board of Selectmen, the two operating and sort of policy-setting boards in town, as well as with the RTM. I think we have an excellent relationship and work very well with you all, okay? As it relates to items that come before the Board of Finance, including items like the security, like the appropriation for $300,000 for the security officers, what I would reiterate to everyone here in the RTM and members of the public is that if you have comments on something that comes before the Board of Finance, you're all of our constituents, you're our clients. If you have comments on, or opinions that you want to be heard as we consider appropriating funds, even when we're being asked to appropriate funds in the face of a $900,000 surplus, I invite you all to attend our meetings and give us your input before we vote on it. If you can't attend our meetings, all of our emails are at the end of this presentation, and you should all send us an email. Individuals, committee heads, you're all welcome to provide us input. I noticed there were 47 people who wanted to provide input on the security initiative. There were 0 that showed up at our Board of Finance meeting. You're all welcome. There were 0 emails that we received on it. You're all welcome at all times to give us your input. Even if it's appropriating surplus, just because you want it to come here, you should give us your input. It's hard for us to react after the fact. We will be responsive if you have comments. So that's it. On behalf of the Board of Finance, I'd like to thank, first off, our staff, Jen Charneski and her team, who do a fabulous job with all of our financials. They effectively run this entire town, interact seamlessly with the Board of Ed, overseeing the largest department there, and really help to keep us in great shape here. And I'd like to wish you all happy holidays, happy New Year, and I guess I would say I look forward to the upcoming budget season. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. There being no further votes to count or anything, I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Oh, I hear it. Yes, there we are. A second. Oh, I hear it again. All in favor, please rise.